Welcome back to another episode of Epic Gangsta Tales. Today, we have a fascinating little story we're going to get into. Today's story is going to center around Roy Demeo and Nino Gaggi getting their hands dirty. You heard that right. The famous Roy Demeo and Nino Gaggi, who happened to be a captain at the time of this incident we're going to discuss, get their hands very dirty. Anytime I get the chance to cover the Demeo crew, Nino Gaggi, any of those guys, I relish in talking about these guys. And like I always say, I always try to put out where I get the info from, or where you can find said info. Look no farther than The Murder Machine by Jerry Capisci. Excellent book. If you love the mob books like I do, Murder Machine, man, I highly recommend that. It is a gruesomely fascinating book where you can't put it down. That's where the majority of today's info in the episode is going to be from. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the episode, guys. Now, in late 1979, Demeo and Nino Gaggi became involved in a conflict with Gambino crime family soldier James Jimmy the Clam Eppolito and his son James Jimmy Eppolito Jr. Like I said, Jimmy the Clam was a soldier in the Gambino crime family. His son was an associate. Now, they were the paternal uncle and cousin, respectively, to corrupt, disgraced Mafia cop Louis Eppolito. Now, the beef between the Eppolitos and Nino Gaggi / Roy Demeo centered around a drug deal that went bad. The Eppolitos accused an associate of Roy and Nino of ripping them off on a cocaine deal. And essentially when Roy and Nino wouldn't settle up on the money, pretty much told the Eppolitos to screw, the Eppolitos made a beef about it, and surprisingly enough, the brilliant Jimmy the Clam requests a sit-down with Big Paul Castellano, the boss of the Gambino crime family, and, he accuses Roy and Nino of dealing drugs. Right? You know what I mean? Which is a huge no-no. You know what I mean? In the Mafia world, especially with guys like Castellano and Chinchiganti, who both had multiple people made guys murdered over dealing drugs, accusations, actually doing it. You know what I mean? This was no little accusation. This is a big deal. You know what I mean? Essentially, you're trying to get these two guys killed in a weasel way, albeit, you know what I mean? But you're trying to get these guys killed. Let's call it what it is, you know what I mean? So this was serious. And Roy and Nino took it as such. They took this move as an attempted hit on their lives, and as well they should have, And what Jimmy the Clam and his son didn't know was that Nino Gaggi, who was a captain in the Gambino crime family, was Big Paul's guy, and Roy Demeo was Nino Gaggi's guy. So naturally, Big Paul sided with Nino and Roy, and Nino requested permission to hit Jimmy the Clam and his son for saying that he and Roy were selling drugs, which they were, but obviously they denied that, wisely so. And Big Paul, being a stickler for the rules, gave the green light. You know what I mean? It's either something or it isn't. So if he's gonna take Nino and Roy's side, he's essentially calling these guys liars. And to lie about something like that, to try to get somebody killed in that life, is disgraceful. You know what I mean? Anyways, Big Paul gave the green light. And not too long after Jimmy the Clam's doomed sit-down with Big Paul, Nino Gaggi set up a meet with Jimmy the Clam and his son under the guise of making things right. Nino told them, "Hey guys, let's get together, the four of us, and hash this thing out. If it's money that will fix the situation, name the price. This thing has gone on for long enough and needs to be put to bed." Jimmy the Clam agreed. So on that fateful night of October 1st, 1979, Roy and Nino were picked up by Jimmy the Clam and his son, Jimmy Jr. Now, what the Jimmys didn't know was that both Roy and Nino were armed with 22 caliber pistols equipped with silencers. The both of them, you know. Somewhere along the ride, the father and the son switched. The son went into the driver's seat. I believe the father was in the passenger seat. Either way, they picked up Roy and Nino. And somewhere along the ride, maybe the tension or the vibe was off. You know what I mean? Because suddenly a worried Jimmy the Clam told his son, who was cracking jokes with Nino Gaggi in the front seat, to pull over to the side of the road real quick. A now confused Jimmy Jr., you know, mid-laugh with Nino, asked his father, you sure? We're gonna be late. And at that point, Jimmy the Clam raised his voice, demanding, pull over, Jimmy, listen to your father. It was at that point that Nino Gaggi pulled out a pistol that he had concealed in his coat and put 2 in Jimmy Jr.'s head. At about the same time that Roy pulled out his pistol and put 3 into the side of Jimmy the Clam's head. It was at this point that Roy and Nino jumped out of the car, leaving the 2 Jimmys slumped dead in the car. Apparently someone had heard the gunshots in the distance and ran over to check it out. You know, after the double murder, Roy and Nino, like I said, had split up to go to 2 separate getaway vehicles. Unfortunately, Nino Gaggi ran into an off-duty cop who saw an armed Nino Gaggi after hearing gunshots and started firing on him. Nino, who returned fire himself before being struck in the neck by a bullet, was seriously wounded. Gaggi was arrested and still had a bullet lodged in his neck when he arrived at the hospital. The bullet was superficial, so it was just, you know, sitting under the skin, but still pretty crazy, you know. After committing a double murder, what are the, you know, run right into an off-duty cop, you know, what are the odds? And, but yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so, even as a captain, Nino Gaggi was getting his hands dirty. And together with Roy Demeo, that was a very scary duo, you know what I mean? But like all these stories, you know, it's a common theme, it's a common ending, you know. Nino Gaggi's story ended with him dying in a prison cell of a heart attack in 1988 after getting ratted on by his own nephew, Dominic Montiglio, who was a main source with Jerry Capisci, you know, for Murder Machine. Most of the info that they got on that book came from Dominic Montiglio, who was, you know, did all the collections for his uncle, did all that, so he was around the Demeo crew. And that's where they got majority of the info from. But he ratted on his uncle, Nino, who ended up, like I said, died in prison, died of a heart attack, 1988. And we all know how Roy's story ends, right? You know, with 2 in the back of the head and getting shoved into his own trunk of his own car, you know? Go figure. But like we always say, crime doesn't pay, and it's never too late to change. But anyways, guys, this has been another episode of Epic Gangster Tales. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It makes a huge difference, guys. And again, the channel continues to grow week by week. So I just want to give a shout out to all my subscribers, everybody rocking with the channel, watching, tuning in. Thank you, guys. I will see you next week. Take care.